Welcome to the Driven Young podcast with Byron Dempsey, dedicated to educating and inspiring the younger generation around entrepreneurship and practical life skills we aren't taught in school. Created for young people who seek direction in establishing their goals and passions. This podcast provides a platform for discussing the steps taken by professionals in their field related to handling finances, making money online, starting a business, growing a network, and much more. And now your host, Byron Dempsey.
Welcome back to the Driven Young podcast. With everyone stuck inside with isolation, I know people are struggling to study and work from home. I know just how hard it is, and that is why I was lucky enough to get Kate Christie on today's show, who is a time management expert. Today we talk about time management tips and how you can use these simple strategies to study fewer hours and get more work done. We keep this entire episode relevant to students who are studying or working on assignments, but these are universal time management skills that will help you out greatly later in life. I hope you're all surviving isolation and quarantine. Now over to Kate. Kate, welcome so much to the podcast.
It's a pleasure to be here, Byron. Thanks for having me.
Super excited to be talking some practical time management tips for the younger generation. So you're a time management expert. Can you quickly explain kind of how you got to that place and what you're currently up to?
Yeah, sure. So I I trained as a lawyer, studied law, worked as a lawyer, then worked for law firms, then transitioned into a corporate role, and didn't love being a lawyer. I've got to admit, and I think that over time, as I had more that I needed to juggle, time became much more important to me, and I realized I was actually intuitively quite good at managing my time, and my team and a lot of people around me weren't. And I guess I learned that time management's a learned skill, that you don't just, or you're not just necessarily good at it, and it's really easy to learn. There's heaps of strategies, and I think that it's a productivity thing, so I'm really passionate about it. I guess I sort of fell into it from being a busy corporate woman with 3 little kids and trying to juggle everything, and I needed to make the most of my time.
So this was in the corporate environment. You noticed that they had a real lack of structure in terms of time management.
Absolutely. And I even now when I look, I've got 3 teenagers, and time management is not something that's taught at school. It's not a skill that we're taught, and it really needs to be, because the more productive you are, the less hours you have to work, basically. And the better you do at work. And people sort of think that you're a real gun and you're getting through things really, really quickly. And it's more, we can all do that. Everyone can do that. It's just about having the strategies, and just, like they teach you IT, or they teach you debating or whatever. Time management is so critical from the time you're a student all the way through. Yeah,
and it does. It's funny you brought up they don't teach you that in school, because kind of what this whole podcast is about. But yeah, you don't think of time management as like a subject, like you would the examples you just gave. But really, everybody will use time management in their life. That's basically guaranteed, no matter what you're doing. So why are we not learning practical strategies and how to implement it?
Absolutely. I look at it in terms of, say, I guess a great analogy is, I think, at school, primary school and high school, they teach you maths, but they don't necessarily teach you how to manage your money, and how to have a budget, and how to allocate to that budget, and how much can you earn, and how much should you spend. And I think that that's something that should be taught at schools as well.
100%.
And I think time management's the same as that. In fact, I'd flip it around and I'd say to your listeners, look, time isn't something that we can manage. It's not about time management. It's about time investment. And you need to invest your time the way you invest your money, and make the right decisions so that you're getting the greatest possible return.
I think it comes down to, if we start time management skills young, it compounds, and the amount of years you're saving. If you start implementing strategies that save you time, sure, the first year you might save, let's say 3 or 4 days or whatever, but then next year you get better and you're saving a week, and then 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and then you end up saving for every 5 weeks you're working essentially 1 less week than everyone else, because
it
you're
going to
all the same amount done.
It definitely does work that way. And I think that even as a student, or a young adult, if you like, the more you can systemize the basics, where there are things that you're constantly doing or you're regularly doing, don't recreate it every single time. So you want to automate and systemize as much of the basics as possible. And that means that you're investing a chunk of time up front to systemize and to create the system and the process. But once you've done that, you're just getting returns every single day.
And what are the basics?
Well, I think that in terms of, say, students, the basics is having a really good calendar and knowing your energy, knowing when you're at your best. So if you're, say, a morning person, that's the time you should be dedicating to doing your study, for example. If you're sort of better in the afternoons, then you want to structure your calendar to make sure that that's the time you're doing your hardest work. Some of the other basics are just having that routine around locking in deadlines. One of the things I see right from school through to professionals is that they tell you that they like to work on adrenaline. Oh, I get my best results when I'm near the cutoff, or I like to leave it to the last minute because then I get my best results. And it's just rubbish. They've trained that's it, and they've trained their brain to kind of work that way. And it's an adrenaline infused sort of rush of stress and anxiety. And if you're working like that as a student, then there's every chance you'll take that into your working life. And it's not a great way to work.
So build the habits and the systems now, because even though your structure from uni to work life is going to change, if you're going to still have the basic systems in place,
that's right,
it'll cross over.
Absolutely. So having another, right from scratch, a really great to-do list. So a master to-do list where you write down everything you need to do for the week, and then just pick the 2 most important things you have to do Monday. And get those done. You don't have to do 800 things. And then revisit the list each night. Pick the 2 most important things for Tuesday. Just keep it simple. Use your calendar in conjunction with your to-do list. Have really great deadlines. A big basic is not to multitask. Multitasking does not work.
Yeah.
And in fact, let's prove it right now to your listeners.
Yeah, sure.
So when I say go, I want you to count out loud to 26, saying every single number as fast as you can. Go.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26.
Beautiful. All right. Now this time when I say go, I want you to do the alphabet as fast as you can. Go.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z.
Excellent. All right.
Okay.
This time I want you to go 1A, 2B, 3C.
Okay.
Go.
1A, 2B, 3C, 4D, 5H, 6J, K. Oh my gosh. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
we can't multitask.
And I'm so bad at that. I mean, I'm such a sucker for multitasking. Like, I always catch myself doing it. Like, I'll just, and emails or something will pop up and I'm like, I'll work on that. I'll work on that. I'll work on that.
Yeah.
And it's, I don't know if you talk about getting in flow and like in the zone where you can just kind of crush out one thing at a time.
Yeah.
But sometimes I enter that and it feels really good. And I'm sure people can probably agree. They've been doing an assignment. I've been doing something where I've just spent 2 hours crushing it out. And that 2 hours is more productive than like 6 hours doing it and maybe doing 2 or 3, 4 things at once.
Absolutely. And in flow doesn't need to be this kind of, nirvana state that you can only create every now and then and it hits you and, oh my God, I'm in flow, let's punch it out. You can create that flow for yourself every single day by batching your time in your calendar and just focusing on one thing at a time. So if you've got an assignment that you have to do and you're focusing on that, set a timer for 40 minutes and work in a 40-minute batch of time. Turn your emails off, turn your notifications off, turn your phone off, turn off all those distractions, and you can train yourself to get into flow.
Yeah. And obviously during high school or, anyone young suffers from the phone, right? So you're sitting down doing an assignment. Oh, someone messages me. Oh, you're complaining about the assignment together or something. It's like really, I know it's hard and it sounds easy, but it's actually hard. Just hit airplane mode, turn off your phone for 40 minutes, But, there's always your brain's like, oh, what if someone's messaging me? I want to check. But you've just got to try enter that flow state by, as you said, creating it.
You've got to switch off the distractions. This whole sort of FOMO thing. I mean, what is it that you think they're messaging you about that's any more important than what you're trying to do?
Especially within 40 minutes.
Exactly.
What is going to be you need to answer within 40 minutes?
That's it. You'll be looking at your phone. It's like, well, it's going to be pictures of someone who's been to the gym and then someone's had breakfast after the gym and then they've put a picture of their cat up. I mean, who cares? So you have to be self-disciplined about this stuff. On average, students or younger generations, if you like, are spending up to 9 hours a day on their phone.
9 hours a day?
Yeah.
Whew,
yeah.
I thought I was bad.
Yeah. Okay. And you can actually track it. You can turn the apps on that tells you how long you've been.
Apple's got it built in as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And use that stuff and put some boundaries around your phone usage because it's impacting your ability to focus on what's more important, really.
Yeah. And I think Apple breaks it down into because obviously you can be doing good stuff on your phone, but Apple will tell you what has been social media and you can have a look at the exact numbers. And yeah, it's shockingly high.
That's it. And just look at it across a couple of days and just sort of map your habits and make some better decisions about where you want to spend your time.
And maybe, I don't know if you would agree on this, let's say we're doing an assignment together. Maybe say to the group chat, hey, let's just turn off our phone for 40 minutes and focus on assignment. Or this afternoon, let's not talk, let's not distract each other, let's kind of do it together.
Yeah.
Because as obviously uni, high school, I was no better, always leaving it to last minute.
Mm-hmm.
And people are working up until 3, 4 a.m. in the morning, which just blows my mind because I feel like your productivity and your mental state and how effective your writing is and your assignment work is at that time of night. It just
plummets.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so even though you might get it done, your results aren't going to be as good because you were, on a few energy drinks at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Exactly. I think that, to address the first thing you said is, collaborate with your friends. If you're working on an assignment, then agree some rules and keep each other accountable and say, okay, let's all commit to just, even if you start with 20-minute bursts of focused work and then slowly try and build it up. But if you keep each other accountable and collaborate that way, then it's a really great way to focus. The other thing I'd say is, and I think I mentioned it earlier, is you've got to match your energy to your hardest work. So if you've got a really hard assignment or you're studying for some exams and it's really intense sort of stuff, the last thing you want to be doing is doing that at 2 a.m. Because no one, well, very few people are at their absolute best at 2 a.m. So you want to work out, okay, when am I my most energized, my most impactful, creative, feeling awake, bouncing around with energy? That's the time I should be using to study for these really hard exams, because what it means ultimately is you're going to retain more, but it also means that you're saving time, because if you do the hard work when it's not your best brain, if you use your worst brain for your hardest work, it's going to take you twice as long. And it also means that your error rate will increase significantly.
Especially when you're studying, because studying versus an assignment is different. Assignment, once you've got it out on the piece of paper and it's all done, you can kind of hand it in. But when you're studying, you actually need to be absorbing all the information because you need that for an exam. Yeah. And I think it's funny because a lot of people would probably argue against saying they are very productive at 2 a.m. And the reason for that might be because it's 2 a.m. and no one else is awake distracting you. And so how can you create that situation during the day by turning off your phone or whatever it is, maybe going to the library or whatever it is. Yeah. And so I think that it kind of links back to what we were talking about earlier.
Sure. You have to be, if you're going to have that sort of dedicated time of just focusing on one thing, so not multitasking, and either focusing on an assignment or on an exam, then you need to either remove the distractions or you need to remove yourself. So you have to remove the distractions like the phone and the communication channels. And if you're in a sort of a noisy environment, then as you say, remove yourself, take yourself off to the library or go even a cafe, because the noise there is kind of white noise.
Yeah.
But get away from your phones.
Yeah. Would you recommend keeping the phone out of your room?
I try and recommend that to my teenagers.
It's a lot easier said than done.
It's not entirely successful, I must admit. But having said that, the nights where, say they've got an exam the next morning and it's pretty intense and they have been studying hard and they're knackered, they tend to put their phone on charge in the kitchen. and they won't have it in their room. So I think it's almost like a self-regulation thing. They know when they need it.
Everyone knows you shouldn't be on your phone. It's just addictive, and it's hard to not to do it.
Yeah.
And most people will only be able to do it when they're at their last resort the night before, as you said.
Yeah.
And so I think that's such a big one. The night before, everyone does it.
Yeah.
I did it. I still kind of do it. So you remove the phone, remove yourself. Or not remove any distractions.
Yeah,
or
remove distractions or remove
distractions.
yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
And that includes interruptions, because if you're in flow, as you said, and you're working really well, if someone comes up and interrupts you, or your phone goes, or it buzzes, or it beeps, or whatever, every time you get interrupted, your productivity drops by about 40%.
40.
Yep.
Okay,
and then it takes you 23, on average, it'll take you 23 minutes to refocus to the point of focus you had when you were interrupted. So if you are interrupted, it's massively impacting your ability to be in flow.
Yeah.
So, say to your parents, look, I'm going to go and study for an hour. Don't interrupt me, unless the house is on fire, sort of thing. Turn your phone off, remove those interruptions, and also, and educate the people around you. Say, look, every time you interrupted me, this is what it's costing me.
Yeah. It's costing you, as you just said, what do you say, 20 minutes, 25
23 minutes
to get back onto track where you were.
That's all right. That's right. And the other thing is that if you are in flow and it's going really well, if you're interrupted, then not only does it take you 23 minutes to get back on track, but on average, you'll do 2 different things before you return to the original task.
Yeah, that sounds right.
So you'll check your emails,
check
or
Facebook
you'll
or
make a call, or you'll jump into Facebook, or you might go make a sandwich, or have a chat to your mates or your parents.
Because you're broken now. It's like, I'm broken. I might as well, before I get back on track, I might as well do some things.
That's it. And so you're wasting more time again. The other thing is that oftentimes we can be our own worst interrupter. Self-distractions are, really high and really damaging, just as damaging as someone else interrupting you is when you kind of interrupt yourself. So try and set yourself up for study in such a way that you're making the environment really nice to be in full flow. So, have your drink of water or your coffee or your tea ready, have some music on, or, some nice smelling candles or whatever. Just get it all set up so that when you're there, it's a nice environment to be in and you're not looking for distractions.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll go get a coffee, or I just go and do this, or because, that's eating into your time as well. Yeah,
cool. And I just kind of had a thought. What are your thoughts on goal setting in terms of, like, let's say someone goes home after school or goes home after work and they need to get this done. So they create a nice environment, they do all that stuff. Are you better off going, okay, let's just nut this out until 6 o'clock at night and then I can watch Netflix and then I can relax or something?
Yeah.
Do you think that's productive?
Look, I do. I think if you set yourself some goals, and time frames, if you say, well, I'm going to study for an hour without stopping, uninterrupted, and then I'm going to give myself a half-hour break where I'm just going to completely switch off and not, and a break means a break. Like, it means get away from your computer, get away from your device. Go for a walk around the block, or go and have a chat to someone, have some, human interaction.
Yeah.
And then set yourself another target. But working to goals and targets works really well. And also knowing there's good stuff at the end. I'll study really hard for 2 hours and then I'm going to watch Netflix for the rest of the evening. Yeah.
And is that the time you recommend, an hour and a half now? Or you've mentioned 40 minutes?
Look, most people can work for around 45 minutes in flow.
Like really productively.
That's
good to know.
Yeah.
Because people will be like, everyone else probably thinks everyone else is doing 2, 3, 4 hours. But most people are only working 45 minutes productively.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now, some people, there'll be outliers, right? So some people can really only focus for, say, 20, 25 minutes. Other people could work for 2 or 3 or 4 hours without, but on average, it's around about 45 minutes. But, the best thing to do is just monitor it for yourself. So set a bit of a timer, start working, and then once you get to that point where you're starting to get distracted or a bit tired or wanting to stand up, just monitor it. And if each time it's around 40 to 50 minutes, then that's your sweet point.
And you say like 40 on and then 10 off or 20 off?
Yeah, 10, 15 off. If you've got like, final exams that you're studying for and you're wanting and you're needing to study back to back, then I would have, probably around, say, 45-minute study period and then say a 10-15 minute break, and then another 45 minutes. Then I'd have a bigger break.
Yeah.
Maybe a half hour or a 45-minute break.
And by break, as you mentioned before, you don't mean jump in bed and scroll through your phone. You mean go for a walk, grab a sandwich, go talk to someone.
Exactly.
Do something that's kind of like resetting you.
It allows you to switch your brain off and just have a break. Have a break. You've got to think about your day and say studying or assignments or those sort of periods. And plus, once you join the workforce, your day is a series of short sprints. It's not a marathon.
Yeah. And that's a good way to frame it. Series of short sprints. You're saying that's the best way to frame it?
Absolutely. Yep. So have your sprint for say 45 minutes and then have a break. Then have your next sprint and then have a break.
And during those sprints, we're focusing on one thing.
You're focusing on one thing. So, and it can be lots of the one thing. So that's batching, where you might say, okay, I have to say, in a work context, you might batch an hour where you're doing sales calls. So you might make 10 calls, but it's all about sales.
Yeah.
You might batch an hour or 45 minutes where you're invoicing or billing. So you might produce 30 bills, but it's all
the
bills.
same thing. Yeah. Because it's the same mind. You're
that's
taking
right.
The same focus.
You're not having to jump in and out of different tasks to keep the flow going. So from a study concept, you may study, say, maths for 40 minutes, and it might be different disciplines within maths, but you're doing just maths, and then equally for English and other subjects. What you don't want to do is spend 10 minutes on maths and jump into looking at your English quotes for 15 minutes and then jump into your assignment on biology for 10 minutes. That's just not a good use of your time.
Often use it as an escape. Maybe they're struggling with maths. It's like, I'll go check my biology just so they can kind of get away with it. And it's like, I'm still working for the 45 minutes.
That's right.
But it's like, I've done 10 minutes of English. I've set a goal of 40 minutes. I'm going to switch to English and see what I can do here. I've hit my point of English is getting difficult. I'm going to switch to this one.
Yeah.
And suddenly you've done 3 tasks in 45 minutes and you're like, yes, I've hit my goal. But really you haven't.
That's
because
right.
your brain has been interrupted 3-4 times.
That's it. You're multitasking.
Yeah,
you're basically trying to make your brain switch between tasks kind of too quickly.
And I think, everyone knows about time management. Everyone knows that most people know you should be batching your time in this sort of way. And I think it's just kind of listening to this, making it more self-aware is kind of how, and as you said, monitoring yourself. So catch yourself out when you hit a certain point, you're going, okay, about 40 minutes, I've kind of started getting distracted. You do it again. Okay, 50 minutes, 40 minutes. And you're like, okay, this is probably my sweet spot. You're saying a lot of people could be 20, 25 minutes.
Yeah, that's it. You just need to know what your own sweet spot is.
Yeah, awesome.
And then sort of challenge yourself. Okay, can I extend my sweet spot by 5 minutes? And if I can't, well, that's okay. It doesn't matter. The other thing I'd say is if there are tasks that you're typically doing, so say, for example, it's in study period or you're coming up to exams, and say that the maths exam is going to be 45 minutes long. Start timing yourself in exam conditions. So give yourself the 15 minutes reading time and don't, pick up your pens because you're not allowed to, and then jump in and start working against the clock, because in those kind of fast-paced exams, particularly, my son's just finished year 12 this year and everything is against the clock in year 12, those final exams. You have to... There's kind of 2 different kinds of study. There's study where you're learning the content, and there's that, that repetition of absorbing the material. But then there's also study in terms of performance, where you then have to perform in exam conditions.
Yeah.
So there's no point in just studying all your English quotes and all the texts without putting yourself in exam conditions and saying, well, can I actually bash out 3 essays under pressure and under a time commitment? Yeah,
and I remember doing that, like timing yourself. And the other thing is, try not to use your phone as a timer.
Correct.
Because I think there was a study, and it was not a study, some sort of stat, I don't know exactly, but it was like even when your phone's off and in your room, your brain still kind of knows it's there, and you're still going to be slightly distracted, even if the phone's off or on airplane plane mode. Just because it's the fact that you subconsciously know it's there, you're going to be a bit more distracted.
Your mind goes
so if
to
you can leave it somewhere completely out of reach.
Yeah. And then don't use the timer on your phone or the computer. Put the phone away. Just get one of those little timers, those windy timer clocks from the $2 shop or the reject shop. And you just, it's like an egg timer. You just wind it up to your 45 minutes. That'll then sit there and kind of tick in the background. It's called the Pomodoro Technique. It's a really famous time management technique. And the guy, Mr. Pomodoro, he was sort of recommended that you do it in sort of 20, 25-minute bursts. I say just do it in your own sweet spot.
Yeah.
But you have that timer going. It means that your brain subconsciously is kind of competing against the clock, and it's not distracted by a phone or by a device. So that's one that works really well.
That's
and that
cool.
works really well in a professional environment. I've got a lot of my corporate clients got those little egg timers on their desks.
Really? And is it almost like kind of creates the environment of, as you said, like an exam environment almost, because your brain, and because we associate tick with kind of a time frame.
Yep. So it basically, you're starting to train your brain to work in a very focused inflow against that ticky clock without distraction. When the timer goes off, it's like, woo,
you've done
okay,
it.
now I've got my 15, 20 minutes, my half-hour break, or I'll go do something different.
Yeah, great.
If you're doing things that are repeatable type tasks where you've got to sort of smash an essay out in 25 minutes, also try and train yourself or set yourself, I guess, the challenge to say, okay, I've timed this and it usually takes me 25 minutes to write this essay. I'm going to try and do it in 23 minutes. I'm going to try and do it in 22 minutes or whatever, without compromising the content. Because if you can buy yourself little bits of time for some of those more rote things, it's going to give you more time in the exam to do the more analytical stuff that you can't necessarily prepare for.
Yeah, you actually need to sit down and go, okay, how do
I've got to think about
read
this.
the question? How do I answer this question in the 4 different, phases?
That's right.
Yeah, as opposed to just kind of, because the thing with essays, the way we were taught is you just adapt to the question. You go in with an essay that's completely ready, and you just adapt. And half the time you're just adapting like the conclusion, the intro, and some main key points, and much of it is just the same.
Yeah.
So if you can shave a few minutes off that, giving you time for the multiple choice or the short answer questions, which you can't really
or the
prepare
article
for.
analysis where you're given an article from The Age, and you have to talk about who's the audience and what's the tone and what are some of the things that they're debating or whatever the case may be. That's stuff that you can practice it, but you don't know what example you're going to get in the exam.
Exactly.
So you need more time to sort of think through those sorts of things.
Yeah, cool. So if we were to summarize kind of everything we've just said, I'm trying to think back. A few points I can remember. We've got batching. It's a batch of time. It's not a marathon. It's multiple sprints throughout the day.
Yeah.
Obviously, remove your phone. Not just turn it off. If you have to keep your phone on for calls, make sure your data's off or your Wi-Fi's off, so you're not getting Facebook and stuff.
Yeah.
But try remove it so it's not in the same area.
Yeah.
What else do we have? We
had don't multitask.
So that's a big one.
Focus on one thing at a time.
And not just one thing. One topic or whatever, however you want to phrase it.
Yeah.
One thing that's
one subject or one piece of work, or multiple of the same kind of work, like say the bills or the invoicing, whatever. We talked about to-do lists and calendars and deadlines.
Mm-hmm. And what was that about again? So we had to-do lists, calendars, and deadlines.
Yeah, so your to-do list is have a really great master to-do list with everything you have to get done, and pick 2 things for tomorrow, and then lock them in at a time. And you use your best brain for your best work.
Yeah. So
do your hard stuff when you're most energized.
And when are the majority of people most energized?
Look, I don't know the answer to that. I can say that indicatively with the work I do with big groups of professionals and clients, when I ask, for show of hands, who's morning, who's day, who's evening, on the whole, the majority of people I work with are morning people. Yeah. But I don't know whether that's true of the world.
Yeah.
But I think that it makes sense, doesn't it? You've had a good night's sleep, you're rested, you wake up, you may do some exercise, so you sort of should be energized and invigorated. That's kind of your best brain time.
Yeah, and that's when you can focus. So if you focus in the morning, you've now got permission to relax at night.
I think so, yeah. If you want to work in that way where it's...
Or the opposite.
Absolutely.
Work at night and have a sleep in.
Yeah,
whatever your thing is.
But structure it in a way that there's some reward in there for you. There's some goals. There's also what's really important that I found... with my kids, but with others, other teenagers studying, is have a switch off.
Yeah.
Like, you can't work forever, and you can't just keep studying and killing yourself and doing ridiculous hours. You have to actually be reasonable about it. And there's got to be a point in time where each night you say, I'm stopping. You know, I'm stopping at 8 o'clock every night, or I'm stopping at 9 o'clock every night, or whatever the case may be. But you can't just work the whole time and keep studying, because it's actually not going into your brain. You're not actually, you know, for the extra 3 or 4 hours you're doing, you may get like a 5% extra go in your brain. It's not worth it.
It's like we were saying before about how if someone does math, English, and they keep jumping between them, they feel like, okay, I've hit my 45-minute mark. I've done my 45 minutes of study, but you actually haven't. Same with, you know, if you're up late, maybe some people do work well late, but if you're up late, you're getting it in just for the sake of getting it in, not actually to absorb the information.
That's right.
And that can be really dangerous.
Absolutely.
I think also, to your point, so many people, you know, they'll be like, oh, she's told me to give a break and they'll take a break towards the end. The problem is they won't do any work, and then they'll cram it all at the end. And so what we're saying, obviously people know this, you got to spread it out, and that will allow you to take breaks throughout. You can absorb the information.
That's right. That's about setting those deadlines and having smart deadlines, and staggering the workload. Don't leave it all to the last minute.
And that's that to-do list. Yeah.
And it's about identifying, okay, well, this is the most important thing. Equally, there will be times of the day where you're feeling tired and sluggish. Now, if you either have an extended break, or if you want to push through, then use that more sort of sluggish time to do more of, say, your process-driven work.
Yeah.
So rather than working on your hardest math stuff, use that time to get your books sorted, or get, you know, tabulate your notes to go into the exam, or, you know, set up your clear pencil case with the pencils and the rubbers and everything that you're allowed to take in. You know, make sure you've got your dictionary. So use that time when your brain's not firing, just to get some other simple stuff done, so that you're continuing to tick stuff off your list.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. I think it's been really practical and really great. And just before we wrap up, I ask this question to every guest. What would your one piece of advice be for the younger generation? It can be anything. Doesn't have to be time management related.
Okay. I think that my greatest piece of advice would be, don't feel pressure to choose what you want to do too quickly. You know, I've seen it so much with my boys over the last couple of years. There's so much pressure for them to, you know, go to university and have a career and, you know, be a lawyer or be a doctor. And it's not always about that. I think that it's better to take your time, take a gap year, work for a while, work out what you love and what you really, really want to do. It costs a lot of money to go to university. Yeah. So don't... And time. Exactly. So don't rush into it, spending your time and money on something you may never use. So take the time to find yourself. And also the other thing I'd say is, your ATAR's not the be all and end all, guys. You know, people will forget about it 3 weeks after you get your results. And you've got lots of life to live. And, you know, if you want something badly enough later on, you will work out ways of actually getting that degree or getting that job. You don't have to rush into it too quickly. Yeah. It's funny. It's almost the same answer almost every get to within a range. Oh, really? Yeah. I mean, obviously, it's just something that everyone's struggling with, and it's so obvious. This is why I started the podcast, because I 100% agree. You know, take a gap year is a great idea, unless you're really sure what you want to do. Yeah. So many people go into a degree, they'll be 2 or 3 years in, and they're like, oh, I'm not really enjoying this, but I've already committed 2 or 3 years, so I've got to stick with it. And now you're 10, 20 years in, and you're like, oh my God. Exactly. And it can just be a dangerous kind of loop to get caught in. It is. And look, you know what? I did that loop. I studied as a lawyer, and then I got my law degree, and I thought, oh, well, I might as well get my articles because I've got my degree. So then I got my articles, and then you get offered a job, and then 5 years later, you're working in something you hate. Yeah. I didn't find my passion, and I didn't start writing and talking about time until I was 40. Yeah. And that's quite normal, I find. Yeah. From people I've interviewed and people I talk to, it's like kids think they need to have it at 18, 19, 20, when most people aren't finding it until they're like, 30, 40, 50 even. Exactly. So, cut yourself some slack. Give yourself a break. On the whole, the kids I've seen, you work hard, you've dedicated your time, you're good kids, go and enjoy yourself a bit and find your passion. It'll come.
Awesome. And where can people find you if they want to find out more about time management strategies and tools and stuff?
My website is called Time Stylers.
Yep.
So www.timestylers.com or they can email me, kate@timestylers.com.
Amazing. Kate, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you.
All right. If you are still here, thank you so much for listening to this entire episode. If you got some value out of it, it would mean the world to me if you left a review on iTunes or shared it with your friends or family. Otherwise, I'll be putting up videos of this episode on Instagram and Facebook, so check it out there at Byron Dempsey or at Driven Young Podcast, and I'll see you on the next one.